Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 287 with Michael Trainer. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when he shares what he learned from meeting the Dalai Lama. He actually hosted the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday, and he shares all of his insights and wisdom, which is so powerful. I also loved when he spoke about how to embed your learnings from great teachers, books, and podcasts. I also loved his battery and black hole analogy when it comes to relationships and the key to going big in life. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So, to listen to the full podcast and get all the info in the show notes, head on over to melissaambrosini.com/287 right now. Welcome, Michael. I'm so excited to have you on the show. But to give people a bit of background on you, can you tell us your story, how you got to where you are today, doing the work you now do? Feel free to just go as deep as you want.
So background for me is I started off actually living with a traditional healer in Sri Lanka. So I had very rare access to a traditional healer in Sri Lanka that introduced me really to the power of community. So traditionally in that culture, there was no word for privacy and there was no word for possession. And what that really introduced me to was the power of community to bring people back into balance. So in that context, health was really seen as the integrity of the whole. And I think in our individual oriented lives, it was very powerful to see a community and culture that was really constructed around the collective and the community as opposed to the interest of the individual. Now, fast forward, I wound up leveraging some of those insights into co-creating with a small but powerful group, something called the Global Citizen Festival. Global Citizen is a movement and music festival that really leverages the power of community to create a new narrative around our shared humanity and the ending of extreme poverty in our lifetime. So we saw that there was kind of this prevailing narrative of guilt and shame that was like, give up your cup of coffee and we'll help this poor child in Africa that we really felt just didn't serve our collective humanity. And so we said, what if we could make it so that people actually celebrated that humanity and actually learned and took action? And based on that learning and taking action, we don't ask for people's money. We ask for sort of their hearts and minds and their actions. They were basically given points, and those points entered them into a lottery. And then based on that, they could actually win tickets to a festival we host on the Great Lawn in Central Park. So 70,000 people gather. We've hosted everyone from Jay-Z, Beyonce, Alicia Keys, Stevie Wonder. And then we use those voices to get world leaders to make multi-million and now multi-billion dollar commitments on behalf of the world's poor. Unfortunately, after our third year, my father was diagnosed with dementia.
When your dad got dementia, what was the thought process that you had that led you to create Peak Mind?
Yeah, great question. I felt quite lost. The whole time I'd been building Global Citizen, my father had been battling cancer, prostate cancer. But when he got diagnosed with dementia, I just felt there was like a cancer I felt could be cured. And I'm very, very close with him. But dementia is, at present incurable. And so I said, Dad, I want to take you anywhere in the world you want to go. And he's such a humble man. So he wouldn't ask me to take him anywhere. But I said, all right, well, pack your bags. And I surprised him with a trip to South Africa. And there we went and we visited Mandela's prison cell, and we traveled through the wine country, and he's such a lover of history, and it was so meaningful for us to spend that time together. And I think actually in some ways it's one of the things I'm most proud of. Of course, the professional accomplishments are beautiful, but that designated time with your loved ones is so, so rich. And so on that trip, I actually decided that I was going to leave Global Citizen with the folks that I had launched it with and take a little time to really get clear. And so what I did was I did a 30-day meditation retreat where I really just kind of cleansed myself. I was meditating, and eating clean and really just actually seeking for, if you will, a download or a vision. This really, it's going to sound wild, but literally on the 30th day, I mean, you've been to my house. I live right on the ocean. It was a cold day in November, and I went out to the ocean, and it was pitch black, dark, and I had just finished my 30th day. And I went to the edge of the sea, and I literally started to cry. And I wasn't sad, but I just felt this kind of deep release. And I had this intuitive hit to jump in the ocean. and it was freezing. I mean, we're talking about the middle of winter, but I was like, all right, I got to do it. So I stripped naked, jump in middle of the night into the Pacific Ocean, and actually just had this, just like kind of like awakening moment. And I had this crazy idea, intuitive hit. I was like, you know what? I'm friends, fortunately, with Nelson Mandela's grandsons, and we had been talking about a campaign and realized that the Mandela Day is actually almost about a week away from the Dalai Lama's birthday. And so I've been thinking about like what could it look like to bring together, these incredible agents of change. And so to make a very long story short, I just had this idea. I didn't know how, but I wanted to host His Holiness the Dalai Lama because I wanted to bring about awareness. I mean, this is pre sort of meditation having the kind of heyday we're seeing right now. I wanted to really bring awareness to the possibilities of the mind to really transform people's lives. So this was just one of the first anchors that I felt I could really hold on to that I knew could have a transformative impact on people's lives. And I was so interested because, as we all know, the mind is our portal to our worlds, right? It's where our thoughts and our feelings and then our requisite actions unfold in this beautiful gift that we're all given called life. And so for me, it was really this idea of I don't know what's going to come from it, but I was committed to this crazy idea of hosting the Dalai Lama, and it happened to be his 80th birthday coming up in July, and so I declared it. Had no reasonable reason to think I could do it, and through grace and a lot of hard work, fortunately, was able to pull it off.
So you got to meet the Dalai Lama. What was that like?
It was one of the most profoundly beautiful moments of my life for a variety of reasons. What was interesting was it was profoundly moving for my mother. My mother cried. She's a very strong, tough woman, and she cried in a way I've never seen her cry before. And she said she felt like she had just met Jesus. And I will say, in a similar way for me, just seeing him first of all walk forward, and then I moved in and I went to sort of humble myself. And he slowly grabbed my hands and he placed his third eye against my third eye. And as he did, I literally just started to just tear, just like tears just streamed down my face. And it was just this moment of total surrender. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. And I will say also, not just for me, the reflection I got from several is what he shared was profound, but the most profound aspect of the experience was his way of being. He literally stopped at the leaf of a palm tree and he connected with the leaf of this tree. And I have this just this memory of him literally like connecting to the tree as if it was the value of a person. And every person he came across, young, old, celebrity, non-celebrity, didn't matter. Everyone was treated equally with a smile and with grace. So it was one of the more profound meetings of my life.
And the teachings and the wisdom that you got from him, how do you implement them in your everyday life? How do you and what do you do to remember the teachings and the lessons that you got in that moment?
I think many of us are used to chasing what would be called the ecstasies or the ecstatic moment, right? And that was definitively an ecstatic moment. For me, and I think for many of us, the work, however, is in the integration, right? Like you do a powerful retreat or you have, a once in a lifetime moment like that. You kind of feel the afterglow, but the trick is, how does one apply those tools in everyday life? And so for me, it's around, holding, the Dalai Lama. Part of the way I hold that is I literally have his image on my altar. I have that kata scarf he gave me on the head of my bed. So the energy of that is in my sort of heart and in my space. But then I also apply the practice. Like I use it as a koan, if you will, or an anchor in my meditation practice. So I have a daily meditation practice. When I get into a place of that victim mind or that victim consciousness, or when I go back to moments of feeling, oh, this is profoundly unjust, I go back to thinking about those moments with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I think to me, it's just thinking about whoever those individuals are that are most inspiring for you, that bring you back to center. Who are those people? And having them as almost as allies, however you want to think about it, guardian angels, whatever resonates with you based on your own beliefs and worldview, to me, those are the moments and the individuals I go back to when I find myself falling out of center to bring me back.
You have this go big, think big, make a huge impact mentality. How can we take our thinking from this small, minute way of being to thinking really on a larger scale?
Great question. It's actually really appropriate for me right now because, sort of leading from a place of vulnerability, it's interesting. I was with a dear friend just last week, actually, on Thursday. I had interviewed Moby for my podcast, and we were out for dinner at his restaurant afterwards. And my friend said to me, she gave me an unsolicited piece of feedback. She's like, Michael, that was amazing, but I think you're playing small. And I was like, okay, that wasn't really what I was expecting. But I think many of us do at times. And I would, if I were speaking authentically, I feel like amidst my accomplishments, Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, I think is such a great book. I'm sure you've read it. I recommend it to everyone in your audience. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I'm guessing many have listened. Incredible hits that was a perennial bestseller. And, when you create something that's that big, you can get stuck in not wanting to create again for fear that nothing you ever create will be as quote unquote big. I had a bit of that when I decided to leave Global Citizen because, in some ways, likely nothing I will create again will be in a way that big, quote unquote. But that doesn't prevent me from having big thinking. I've just sort of changed the geography in which I'm operating. The best analogy I can use is I think all of us have seasons in life, and nature is my great teacher. We have summer, and that's a time of activity and being out in the world. And we have fall, when things kind of are meant to fall away. And then we enter into winter, where it's a bit of time of rest and reflection and hibernation. Or if you're into sports, you have the off season, and then you have the regular season, then you have the playoffs where you're going hard. So I think pairing that timing with opportunity and then the right people, those are like the magical ingredients. The greatest corollary to your long-term health and happiness is the caliber of your long-term relationships. And so for me, I think in any vision, if you're looking to go big, it's about surrounding yourself with the people who you trust that also give you very real feedback, but are committed to pushing you beyond the version of yourself you're living from now. For me at the moment, it's really thinking about what season you're in, knowing what that season is, and then knowing what the scale of your vision can be. How do you set yourself up for that vision to win and to come to fruition, especially if it's big? And knowing then the ingredients of when's the right timing commensurate with your season to launch that off, and setting it up to win by surrounding yourself with the right people to keep you on track when things blow you off course, because inevitably they will.
And it kind of circles all the way back to what we mentioned at the very start, which is the surrounding yourself with the inspiring people. It is such a key point to health and happiness. The people that you surround yourself with are so important. If you have people in your life that unhealthy relationships that are bringing you down, this doesn't mean you have to be horrible and dump them. That's not what we're saying. This is not about being mean. This is not about dumping friends over text message. That is not what we're talking about. It's about energy direction.
Totally. There's an analogy that I like to use that people can kind of a mind key that they can lock onto, which is batteries and black holes. Who are the people in your life that feel like batteries, that charge you up? When you're with them, you feel invigorated, inspired, you have ideas of all the things you want to create. And who are the folks that are in your life that feel like black holes, that suck you, that bring you down, that are takers? Now, to be frank, sometimes we have family that are black holes. So it isn't to say that you have to cut out black holes, or even some people can shift. I think if someone's not family and is a consistent taker, it is important to recognize that, it may not serve you, because our one precious resource on this planet is time, and it's finite. So, invest in spending time with people that lift you up. But also, that old saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. How do I reach out to, and how can I be of service to? And I think that's the real key, right? If you lead with service, how can I be of service to the people that inspire me? And in doing so, you cultivate a whole new garden of relationships.
Now, everyone has a different definition of success. I want to know, what's your definition of success and what do you attribute your success to?
Mm. So for me, there's an adage. I heard it from Jason Silva, but I'm not sure who to attribute to. But he said something which was the effect of, it's a shame that we value success societally and exalt the billionaire. Wouldn't it be interesting if we celebrated those who impacted the lives of a billion people in the same way that we exalt someone who's made $1 billion? And so for me, success is much more aligned in that way. I'm much more interested in how many lives did I touch. And to be honest, as I get older, I would like my impact to continue to be at scale. And fortunately, with Global Citizen, that legacy has already been set to touch over 1 billion lives. But my vision now is also, going back to what I learned from the Dalai Lama, is how can I deeply touch one person? I think in some ways my success is yet to be determined, because in part it will be a reflection of the mirror that I create in my relationship with the person I choose to spend my life with, and how and which is one of the things I admire about you and Nick, as I'm inspired by your relationship. But how do we co-create and choose wisely in our choices? How do those choices reflect our commitment to service? And how does that service impact, inspire, and bring joy to and improve the quality of the lives of those around us? And to your second question, I think success is an inside job. And I think that, we correlate success societally with all of these measures that are external. So I think, to me, success is sourced from within. And I think it's sourced from a place of gratitude and continuing to come back to a place of grace and gratitude and love. I think if we look to nature as a great teacher, as I try to do, it's about how can we show up and give unconditionally from a place of love. And if we source that within, I don't think there's any truer form of success.
What is one thing that you're working on or would like to improve on within yourself at the moment?
The one thing that I'm really looking at, I think integrity to me is one of my core values. And integrity is, I think, alignment and commitment to those values we hold dear. And I've really been looking at and discerning between fun and fulfillment. And so for me, I'm just really looking at the integrity and looking to align my choices more and more to a commitment to that aligned place. And to me, that's what character is. And I'm not perfect, but I'm looking to be more consistent in making decisions from my vision and my values.
Okay, so now let's pretend that you have a magic wand and you could put one book in the school curriculum of every single high school around the world. What book would you choose?
The Alchemist is the first book that comes to mind. There's so many books that I think are incredible, but they're very much like prescriptive. And if I were to say one book for schools, I think that The Alchemist is beautiful, because I think young people are alchemists and I would love to see them empowered in their possibility.
Now, I would love to hear how your day looks. How do you prime yourself for the day?
My morning routine, there's slight iterations, but the general tenets that are consistent are meditation. So I meditate consistently every morning. So my morning usually is meditation with the elements. I then drink water. I have a Berkey. I love lemon water. I also, real talk, caffeinate, and I'm a fan of I usually have a lion's mane coffee or two to get me started. And then I do morning pages. So I do my journaling. So I like to give myself an hour or two, depending on what I need to get done, to actually like move into my day before I start checking the electronics, the work, the emails, things of that nature. So in terms of my day, I've set up my life at present so that I don't have a rigid, regimented schedule. And so, but it definitively, elements that are in there is exercise and movement every day. Sleep is extremely important to me. So I try to get super high quality sleep. I always try to do at least some experience with people. just I think also knowing, again, to that season metaphor, there's certain days that it's like I'm out in the world, and if I stack several of those in a row, I know I then need to retreat within. So for me, it's more of that rhythm in my day than a particular codified schedule. But I have those essential elements of sleep, rest, social time, morning routine every day.